France's foreign minister is in Ukraine today and tomorrow, where he is set to meet the new Ukrainian Prime Minister. Jean-Noël Barrot's visit comes as Ukraine's reeling from a night that saw one of the largest Russian drone and missile barrages in weeks, and just days after the European Union passed its 18th sanctions package against Russia. We're going to talk more about this with our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert, who joins me on the set. Doug, what message does Jean-Noël Barrot hope to send at this moment when Kyiv and much of the rest of Ukraine's under Russian fire?
I'll give the same answer that I've given throughout basically this war now in its third year. That is the message of solidarity with Ukraine, the so-called with you as long as it takes message, just his physical presence there. And his physical presence, as you said, really on the morning after another massive an attack of drones and missiles from Russia, what they call these swarm attacks, many of them penetrating the Ukrainian air defenses. So just his physical presence there, just his reaching out, meeting, as you said, the new Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Svyrydenko, the former vice premier, was appointed last week to now head up the entire government here. So wanting to show that France is very much involved. Also, he will be traveling on to Chernobyl. Obviously, we all know the name Chernobyl, but his presence there trying to underscore another salient message here, that France and the rest of Europe are there with Ukraine, marching in lockstep on trying to ensure nuclear security. There have been alarms and warnings throughout the war as to the integrity and the security of these sites, some of which have been occupied or surrounded by Russian troops. So all of this is, like I said, a symbolic show of solidarity. Will it concretely end the war? No. Is Putin right now sitting there fretting because the French foreign minister is in Ukraine, in Kyiv, meeting with the leadership? Not at all. At the end of the day, the power of France alone, specifically, but Europe as a whole, is not enough to change the calculus, at least the Kremlin's calculus, in the manner it wages what it still calls, and stubbornly calls, you might say, the special military operation. We have seen Europe step up to the plate now, buying U.S. weapons, right? So the U.S. sells weapons now to Europe, NATO, European members of NATO, and then Europe gives them for free to Ukraine. So Europe, in that sense, has stepped up to the plate in a way that at a time when the U.S. is seen as retrenching, pulling away from Ukraine. So you shouldn't count out the symbolism. The symbolism is important. His being there is a reminder for people who don't follow the news, say, that another French Prime Minister, another European leader in Kyiv, being seen alongside Zelensky. We're with you at a very critical, vulnerable juncture for you in this war. So I'm not saying it counts for nothing, but yeah, there's a lot of photo op stuff in there. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of diplomatic symbolism as well.
What about this latest sanctions package from the European Union, which is, again, the 18th since the invasion first happened? Can that put any kind of pressure on Russia to stop the war?
What about the previous 17 packages, Jeannie? In fact, could you tell me sort of anything that was in the previous 17th packages that have really objectively deterred Vladimir Putin's battlefield calculations, the way he has waged his war? Not at all. Does that mean now you can have the debate over sanctions? They're useless. They serve a purpose. You need them. You don't need them. These sanctions particularly targeted oil, the oil and the energy industry, and most specifically this idea of a price cap on what Russia can get for its oil exports. It had been at about $60 since December 2022. The G7, they've wanted to bring that down so that Russia gets less money when it sells its oil abroad, and less money. Why? The logic being with less money, it won't have as much cash to fund its war, to finance its war. Now, that's the wishful thinking aspect. Does it work? Well, Russia has found ingenious ways, and it's used to doing this now, of doing an end run around these sanctions by finding clients who are willing to buy its products from China to India to so on and so forth. Does it mean they're completely ineffective? No. It makes it a little bit more complicated. Russia has to be more creative and find other options. But if you're going to ask me whether or not these new sanctions, which also targeted banks, which also targeted what's called Russia's shadow fleets carrying refined oil around, all of that stuff, yeah, maybe a little blip in the radar, maybe a little here and there. It makes a little incremental difference. But in the long run, Putin is confident that he has the finances and the ability and, more importantly, the Russian population on his side to continue waging this war as he sees fit.
Doug, thank you for that. France 24's Doug Herbert.